Welcome to Leaders Legacy. I'm your host Varsha Sarkar, and in today's episode, we will be talking about the topic navigating diversity and inclusion in workspace. We have with us Parul Singh, who is the Vice President of People and Culture at Xceedance. Hi, Parul.
Hello.
So, Parul, in your role, how have you seen diversity and inclusion evolve over the years? And what are the changes that you're most excited about?
So Varsha, I think I would speak on behalf of the whole HR fraternity. I think over the last 10 years, I would say evolved,
Mhm.
meaning it changed the shape and size. But if I tell you that what has really expedited or accelerated
Mhm.
the DEI landscape is probably COVID
Okay.
to some extent. The June 2020 incident in US,
Mhm.
uh, and the whole globalization of workforce that we have seen in the last 2 decades or so. So yes, the DI landscape has really changed in the last many years, and it has brought in a lot of benefits. However, uh, I don't think we are still there to clearly mark or to clearly measure the positive impact the
Mhm.
DEI efforts bring in.
Mhm.
Uh, at a broad level, yes, I think there are enough matrices, and we can say that yes, there are positive changes that we can see in the workforce, in the employment market, in the whole economic structure that we have. But to really pinpoint the main milestones that we have achieved, I think it is still a little blurry.
Mhm.
Yes, changes have come in over the last many years. There are more that we can expect in the coming few years.
So, what are
And I
the changes that you have seen in corporate setting?
first is the efforts towards more gender inclusion and gender identity. Gender remains to be one of the topmost focus areas from a DI perspective. And that is something that I've seen across organizations, the overall representation of genders within the workforce, the overall representation of genders in the leadership communities, the overall representation of gender in the decision-making process of the organizations. I think there is a change around that. Secondly, I think with the globalization, that we have seen in the last 10, 15 years, um, whether we have realized it or not, I think we have become more inclusive from a demographic stand. Everybody is working with everybody. It's a whole
Mhm.
global environment.
Like
And
people of all races and culture are now working at each other's companies.
yes, and working on joint
All
projects and
right.
products and
Mhm.
collaborating on various initiatives.
Mhm.
So that has brought in a lot of positive impact. And when I'm saying these changes, when I'm talking about these changes, Varsha, these are patterns that we can see
Mhm.
over a time. It has not been a spike of impact. It has evolved over a period of time, and
Mhm.
with a little zoom out approach, if we see, there are changes, positive changes that we can really notice. Age is also something that organizations are trying to focus on, the generational inclusion and diversity,
Right.
and equity. We have Gen Z, we have baby boomers, we have
Mhm.
millennials. So diversity, equity, and inclusion from a generational perspective is also
Mhm.
something that I would say would be in the top three
Mhm.
changes that we have seen over the last many years. Um, Other than that, I think there are other pieces as well. When we talk about the races, when we talk about ethnicity,
Mhm.
but that's when we take a global lens.
Of course, of course.
Even if we take a regional lens, these are the three things that I can clearly see
Right.
that top the charts of any DEI alley, right?
Right.
And any DEI team for that matter.
So, Parul, in your
Um,
20 plus years of experience, What are the common misconceptions and challenges that companies face regarding diversity and inclusion, and how do you combat them?
First and foremost that I have seen is, when we talk about DEI, yes, gender remains to be one of the topmost focus areas. Yes, gender is not and should not be
Mm-hmm.
the DEI focus area, right? So, diversity, equity, inclusion is not an agenda as such, right? It's a mindset. The narrative matters. If you yourself are not convinced with what
Right.
you are trying to do, it would come across as a very transactional exercise.
Yes.
In our effort of making DI programs successful and well received, we end up, losing the narrative somewhere in the effort, right? Um, and while the DI teams may still be very, very committed, sometimes when we are explaining and when we are trying to build alleys for our programs, just the whole approach, because we have heard it so many times and repeatedly in our effort, the DI teams are really trying to just explain it and make sure that people are truly
Yeah, but it kind of goes
on.
over their head. Like it's
Yeah.
just something that you talk about, but you don't really implement in your organization.
Yeah, and people, it becomes like, okay, this is one of the things
Mm-hmm.
that we, okay, this
Right.
is one of the boxes that we need to take. Now
Mm-hmm.
that's not how the DI teams want them to be. In fact, not just the DI teams, the whole organization, the leadership teams, the HR teams, everybody who is involved in these efforts,
Mm-hmm.
nobody wants it to be a transactional exercise. But just the fact that we keep talking about it in so many forums, in so many ways, and repeatedly, I think sometimes we lose the soul of the matter,
Of course.
and it does start sounding many times very transactional. And
Yes.
that's where I would not say myth, but that's a challenge, because then if you really want a program to be successful, you want people to buy it from the heart, right? You want them to be
Mm-hmm.
involved wholeheartedly into it,
Of
right?
course.
That's where I think sometimes people miss the essence of the initiative, the essence of the whole program. Thirdly, I think not looking at the full umbrella of what DEI means.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not gender, it's just not age, it's just not ethnicity, demography. There are a lot of other diverse communities
Mm-hmm.
uh, who need to be included in the workforce,
Mm-hmm.
and who bring in a very different perspective, right?
Can you give
Uh,
an example of one?
Sure. Sure. See, for example, this would sound a little new age, but when we
Mm-hmm.
talk about parents, now there are pet parents also.
Of
It's just
course.
not being a parent who is biologically a mother or a father, right? There
Mm-hmm.
are there are people who adopt pets and are very proud to call themselves as pet parents. So
Right.
that's while you're okay to allow family members to you will have your family days, you would allow people to visit the offices, are you
Mm-hmm.
really okay to bring in pets? Now, even if organizations want to allow, there are so many sales compliances, there are security concerns and all of that. So despite of the best efforts of making it an inclusive effort,
Mm-hmm.
and including members and employees who relate to this pet parent concept,
Mm-hmm.
um, sometimes it doesn't become that successful, right? So
Of course.
that's also something that I'm seeing, just not including the whole umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
A few years ago, I think it was, I was this had stayed with me very, very strongly, so I had to mention it on the call today.
Right.
So there was a job advertisement. We talk about the A-grade colleges and all of that, and there was a
Mm-hmm.
job advertisement wherein I noticed that the recruiter had even mentioned the school board.
Mm-hmm.
If you are not from central board, you do not apply.
Oh.
I mean, how that was really, really questionable, right?
Yeah.
How, when we talk about whole talent diversity, talent pool, increasing the representation, how is this? I understand to some extent, A
Mm-hmm.
colleges, um, uh, by the pedigree, that you get.
Mm-hmm.
But even boards, I mean, how many kids have the choice to even choose a board?
Of
And
course.
they being excluded because some recruiter or some organization is choosing to consider only people who are from a certain board.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's
super
a
weird.
high level of
Yes.
exclusion, very high
Yeah.
level. So yeah, that's something that had stayed with me. Um, Now, see, when we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, belongingness, I think the way our societies have evolved, there are aspects of inclusion coming from there also. It's no longer the religions or the societies. I think what people really now feel belonged to are the communities.
Of course.
And by communities, I mean the faith or
Mm-hmm.
the purpose that you belong to. Now, for example,
Mm-hmm.
like I'll give you this pet parent example only. So there is a community of people who are very supportive of canine health and
Mm-hmm.
dog breeding and support in the city and feeding and all that. So that's a community that you may want to consider including. So it's not just the groups uh, of diversity or the
Mm-hmm.
groups that can be considered for inclusion also have changed. The
Right.
definition of groups have changed.
Right.
It's
Right.
no longer that I'm of a certain faith, I'm of a certain
Mm-hmm.
state or language. It's no longer that. It is about the purpose. It's about the communities that you feel that you belong to.
Right. Right.
uh, and
Something that you stand for, like the vegan community is getting big now.
yeah,
Something
yeah,
like
true.
that, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
So, Parul, in your personal career, what are some strategies or habits that you have implemented that made you an advocate of diversity and inclusion? Can you share a few?
Yeah, sure. I think, as I said, Varsha, first of all, DEI is not a boardroom agenda, it's a mindset.
Mm, of course.
For me, it starts with belief, first of all, that my
Mm,
actions create an impact. Starting with the belief that everybody has a role to play when it comes to DEI and belongingness, right?
mhm.
And each one of us have to move towards those milestones that we want to
Yes,
achieve, right? And secondly, that everybody has a role to play. No one else is going to do it for you. You have to, if
right.
you want to bring in that change, you have to do it. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
do it yourself. You don't need to take larger steps, smaller steps,
Right,
one step at a
right,
time, but
right, right.
do that. Two, I think to some extent, the conversations matter.
Hmm.
The conversation that you and I are having today, because you can bring in change
Mm-hmm.
only if you nudge people to think in a certain direction.
Right.
If you're not even talking about the things, if you're
Mm-hmm.
not even bringing the issues to the table, then it's gonna be a longer
Of
journey.
course.
So
Yes,
let's just
yes.
start with at least having the conversations, because
Rather than
then
being in denial that it doesn't exist.
and once you help people think about these things, I think that's where the change starts to begin. For example, the pet parent thing, or
Mm-hmm.
if we are not even mentioning it, if we're not even making groups around it,
Mm-hmm.
um, this would not even be considered under the DI umbrella, and the
Right.
DI umbrella would continue to grow,
Mm-hmm.
because each one of us, just by the virtue of how the whole economic landscape is, how things can move from one part of the world to another part of
Mm-hmm.
the world, and how things are so well connected. right?
Mm-hmm.
So if things are connected, to be part of that, you really need to understand, right, that what's going
Right,
on the other side. And how would you understand it? Only if you have conversations, right?
right,
So
right.
communication and conversations play a huge role um, in the whole DI, effort.
Mhm.
So yeah, I would say
So,
that
which
has
brings me to my next question. What advice would you give to individuals who might not be in leadership roles, but they want to become allies of diversity and inclusion? Where do they start from? How do they begin?
something. If I have to advise it to the folks who want to be DI allies, I think one is you being convinced that what you do matters.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you can make an impact,
Right,
uh, and that everybody has a role to play. It's not that there is a certain group who only is responsible for DEI. It's not that there is a certain community which only needs attention. That's not the case. So first is to really believe that you have to do your bit, and what you do makes an
mm-hmm.
impact. It's just DEI is just not an emotional fluff. It really
Mm-hmm.
matters, right?
Of course.
So if you want to really amplify the positive impact of the
Mm-hmm.
DI initiatives, I think it's important that one understands, um, or at least is aware of what the DEI matrices are, right?
Right,
If
right.
you do not even know that what we want to achieve or measure, it's
Mm-hmm.
really, very, it's going to be an uphill task, because you
Right,
might end up going into multiple directions, and you would not even know what you want to do, right?
right, right.
So that's also something that I would say, um, that folks who want to become the DEI allies should consider. Um, and yeah, I think being part of the groups, to have the
Mm-hmm.
conversations, to really um, think about uh, the various aspects, and partner with different, once you have really thought about something, then
Mm-hmm.
if you continue to be part of those groups, partner uh, with groups on different initiatives,
Right.
talk about things, stay connected and stay invested. It is not
Mm-hmm.
a one day thing. It is
Right.
also not a one time effort that, okay, fine, I am a DI
It's almost like a
ally.
lifestyle change, and you need to change your beliefs to
Yes,
actually contribute to it.
absolutely, absolutely. You need
Yes.
to change the way you think about things, and
Mm-hmm.
and make a commitment to yourself that you would stay committed to this,
Right.
right? It's because you may be able to do something at this, um it, in today's day and age, and then you may get tired, which is fine. But
Right.
if you are making a commitment to yourself that I will stay committed to this over a period of time, after, you would continue, and sometimes unconsciously also, you would
Mm-hmm.
continue contributing to this noble effort, and the initiatives, that the DEI initiatives, and I'm sure that gradually you would be proud of what you have managed to offer to
Right.
the whole
So,
DEI
Parul,
umbrella.
how exactly does DEI contribute to innovation and problem solving within an organization? Also, can you give a few instances where a diverse team was better than a homogeneous one within an organization in terms of their productivity and how well they were helping the organization grow?
Sure. So I would not quote the organizations and the team names, but I would rather give something generic, something that I've seen, but without quoting the organizations. I
Mhm.
think um, in one of the teams that we were trying to design a service for a certain client, I think we did a lot of surveys, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
data crunching was done, a lot of research was done onto how do we define and design this next level of service.
Right.
And of course, the groups that were working were of two different geographies and were of different generations as well, right? And I'm eventually what we came out with, I believe, was far better because of the collaboration of different geographies
Right.
and the different generations that we had part of that group. To get a little more specific here, when you design a service, you don't design it just for a certain group, right? Most of the time, it's for, you design a product, you design a service,
Right.
it's for everybody, right? Unless it's very specific generational product, right? So if you, in the design aspect, in the research aspect, if you have people who are from different backgrounds, who are from diverse backgrounds and diverse life experiences, they bring in the perspective which would make the product or service more diverse, and which only means that if it is more diverse, it would be more acceptable, it would be used more productivity, more benefits, more profits out of this, right? So I think we have moved away or past the stage wherein we need to prove that a diverse team brings in better results. I think this has been seen enough. And this is proven. So this is no longer a question as such.
Right. So what strategies have your organization implemented to ensure that they have a more diverse and inclusive workforce? And what are the changes that you have seen happening because of this?
We are trying to create programs for our different level of managers from different generations and genders, to hold them, to really help them, flourish and progress in their careers. That's one. We're also making sure that there is enough representation from different groups in the decision-making processes. So that's also something that we are trying to keep a tab on. And at this stage, it's just not implementing right now. We insert certain initiatives. We are also in an awareness stage wherein we are trying to understand where we are and where we want to go, right? So yeah, those are the 2-3 things that I can share at this stage. But overall, as an organization, if I have to say, I think we are very, very committed to the whole DEI effort, and we are trying to see that what programs, not all programs can give us, can bring an immediate impact, and we are okay with that. But to really define that in what time frame we would like to see the impact, I think that's the stage we are at.
Right, of course. Yeah. So in summary, what we have seen is DEI is not just a moral imperative. It's not just a feel-good factor, but it has strategic advantages for any company. Any company should be implementing that so that groupthink doesn't happen. And I guess it will help any company progress further in terms of growth, in terms of expanding the businesses across the globe. It has its own advantages. Thank you so much, Parul, for coming to our show. It was very insightful getting a glimpse into what you do exactly and how you're helping shape companies' future by implementing DEI. Thank you so much, Parul.
Thank you.
And that concludes our episode of Leaders Legacy today. Please do like, follow, and subscribe to our channel. Have a great day ahead.